Part 34. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mi and Buletin Leng. Chapter 331. Caged Bird. Qin Mu said the last three words slowly, which immediately made Nangongyun's furious. He roared, "Qin Mu! Don't bully others too much." His eyes full of murderous intent were fixed on the screen, as if he wanted to rush forward and tear Qin Mu into pieces, crushing his bones and scattering his ashes. Although he had long heard that great Qin Hunjun preferred wives and fairies, he did not expect that Qin Mu would actually set his sights on his Taoist companion. This is absolutely an unacceptable shame for him. Many other saints were also full of indignation, but they did not dare to refute and just remained silent. Because Qin Mu's strength is too terrifying. This has gone beyond the scope of ordinary saints, and is simply an invincible existence. They had no doubt that if they dared to disobey Qin Mu, they would be killed. What? Are you dissatisfied with my arrangement? Qin Mu raised his eyebrows, with a mocking smile on his lips. Shut up, Nangongyun's roared, interrupting Qin Mu's words, with bulging veins on his forehead and bloodshot eyes. He was really furious. If another person dared to speak to him like this, he would have been cut into pieces without a burial place. But now, he held back because he knew very well that he was no match for Qin Mu. But the more this happened, the more Nangongyun's felt aggrieved. As a saint, when did he need to endure such humiliation? Nangongyun's clenched his fist so hard that his back molars were almost broken. Shen Moran's pretty face was also pale, and a trace of water mist flowed from his beautiful pupils, with a hint of shame and annoyance flashing across his face. He was about to cry, and his look was both angry and angry, which made people pity. She bit her red lips tightly, her eyes were watery and misty, and her delicate body was shaking violently. She didn't know whether it was because of too much fear or other reasons. "Your Majesty, please respect yourself," Shen Moran said tremblingly. Nangongyun's listened to the voice of his Taoist companion, and his heart was filled with humiliation. He stared at Qin Mu, his eyes extremely cold. If looks could kill, he would have killed Qin Mu 100 times now. Nangongyun's took a few deep breaths before he could barely suppress the killing intent that surged out of his heart. But even so, he still couldn't hide the overwhelming anger in his chest. "Qin Mu, for what you did today, I will make you pay the price one day." Nangongyun's thought viciously in his heart that he had never hated someone as much as he did at this moment. But at this moment he could only choose to surrender. Nangongyun's looked up at Qin Mu, tried his best to smile, and said slowly, "Emperor Qin, if you want to find the fairy, I can help you find her, as long as you let Qi go. After all, she is a Taoist monk, how can she enter your harem?" He tried to speak at a steady pace to show his sincerity. Nangongyun's felt that he was already humble enough. But Qin Mu laughed loudly after hearing this, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. "Since you dare to invade the Qin dynasty, you must have heard of my reputation. I like to steal other people's Taoist companions, especially you high-ranking saints. I am even more interested." Qin Mu looked at Nangongyun's and Shen Moran teasingly. As soon as he said these words, Nangongyun suddenly turned pale and clenched his fists tightly. He took a deep breath and suppressed the murderous intention in his heart. Nangongyun said in a deep voice, "Emperor Qin, I am willing to provide sufficient compensation. I hope you can let Qi go." "Oh," Qin Mu asked interestingly, "what kind of compensation is it?" Nangongyun's gritted his teeth, took out 2 jade slips from the storage ring, handed them to Qin Mu, and said, "Here are recorded 2 sets of Emperor-level magical secrets and the refining method of quasi-Emperor weapons. How about this deal?" Qin Mu reached for the jade slip and said with a smile, "I don't lack secret skills, nor do I lack magical weapons. I am only interested in fairies and beauties." Nangongyun's watched helplessly as Qin Mu put away the two jade slips while brazenly saying that he was not interested. Nangongyun's finally couldn't bear the murderous intention in his heart and shouted, "Qin Mu! You!" The anger in his heart had reached its peak, and his whole face turned green. If he hadn't been afraid of Qin Mu's terrifying fighting power, he would have gone berserk. But thinking about the current situation, Nangongyun's finally endured it. "What do you want?" Nangongyun's asked through gritted teeth, with a biting chill all over his body. At this time, an indifferent voice suddenly came from the crowd. "Why are you talking so much nonsense to him? If you were still a man, come with me. Maybe there would be a chance." Everyone looked in the direction from which the sound came, and saw Nangong Lingtian standing up suddenly, with a surging breath around his body, and took a step forward. He looked at Shen Moran, a look of determination flashed in his eyes. "I'll hold him back, you run away." After saying that, he rushed towards Qin Mu. Hearing this, Shen Moran's delicate body trembled slightly, her tears welled up in her eyes, and she smiled sadly. "Lingtian, why are you doing this? If you die, what's the use of my living?" Nangong Lingtian said in a sad voice without looking back. When Nangongyun saw this, his expression was uncertain, but he finally gritted his teeth and said, "Qin, you damn fool." After saying that, Nangongyun's also rushed over, waving his palms, condensing a round of sun, lighting up the night sky. He and Nangong Lingtian cooperated tacitly, and instantly formed a double-sided attack, and they all attacked Qin Mu. An astonishing wave raged, the void broke apart, revealing the inky black void turbulence, swallowing everything. The two saints burst out with all their strength, and the power was so amazing that the void was shaking. These two actually joined forces. Tisk tisk, brother Nangong is quite infatuated, and he even gave up his life for a woman. Alas, the two of them have been enemies for most of their lives, and I didn't expect that they would join forces to fight the enemy at this moment. Should we take this opportunity? Forget it. Do you also want to follow the footsteps of those saints just now? I don't want to. Hee, we just watch the excitement. This battle is destined to have no results, and brother Nangong will definitely not have a good end. The saints looked at the battle in front of them and talked a lot, and had no intention of intervening. And the sword fairy Emo Rushuan's eyes were turbulent, and her heart was also moved. This tyrant is known for his lust, and he might attack her soon. If she doesn't leave now, when will she leave? Otherwise, if she becomes a bird in a cage, how can she survive? Emo Rushuan made a prompt decision and turned around without hesitation to leave. As for whether she can leave, how can she know if she doesn't try? But as soon as she turned around, a beautiful and perfect figure blocked her way. "Mu Kingzi? What do you mean?" Emo Rushuan frowned slightly and asked in a deep voice. Mu Kingzi glanced at her lightly and said, "You want to leave?" Emo Rushuan nodded and said, "I have to leave here, otherwise when Qin Mu solves Nangongyun's and Nangong Lingtian, we may not be able to escape the bad luck." Mu Kingzi's mouth showed a trace of sarcasm, and she mocked, "Without the master's order, who allowed you to leave?" Hearing this, Emo Rushuan's pretty face turned pale as snow in an instant, and her beautiful eyes were full of extreme panic. "Master! Qin Mu!" She was stunned in place, full of panic. When did Mu Kingzi, the Holy Lord of Yaoguang Holy Land, fall? She didn't understand, and couldn't figure it out. At this time, on the other side, a woman in a black dress appeared behind Shen Moyan, who had not left yet, and blocked her way. "Today I went to the city again to clean the rental house and asked the landlord to return the deposit. I have completely dealt with this matter. I am so tired. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid." Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 332. Shen Emo Ran? Right? Did I call your name right? Chu Qinyu stared at Shen Ran coldly, with a cold murderous intent in his eyes. You. Shen Ran looked at the woman who blocked his way, his eyes full of vigilance, and asked coldly, "What do you want to do?" Chu Qinyu raised an arc at the corner of his lips and sneered, "Haha, what do you think I want to do?" Shen Ran had a strong sense of danger in her heart, and she subconsciously took 2 steps back. Chu Qinyu curled her lips and sneered, "Although I am very reluctant to share with others, I must obey Qin Mu's orders, otherwise my share will be gone." She raised her eyes and glanced at Qin Mu, who was fighting fiercely with Nangong Lingtian in the distance. There was a little resentment in her eyes. Originally, her share of essence power was not much, and now she had to share a lot of it. She was really reluctant. But Chu Qinyu could still tell the difference between a full meal and a full meal. The less the essence power, the less it is. At least it can be sustained. If she disobeys Qin Mu's order, she will never get it again. Shen Moyan's eyes were extremely cold. She stared at Chu Qinyu and Li Qingluo behind her and said, "Qin Mu asked you to come? I didn't expect that the Daking dynasty had already been Qin Mu's puppet." She looked calm on the surface, but her heart had already set off a huge wave. She didn't expect that Qin Mu not only had the strength comparable to the great emperor, but also secretly controlled the Daking dynasty and even turned it into his puppet. At this moment, all the doubts were answered. It's really ridiculous. It was obviously these saints who besieged Chang'an, but in the end it became Qin Mu who besieged all of them. And the most important thing is that there are spies among them. Qin Mu must have known their actions through the queen of the Daking dynasty, right? Shen Moyan finally understood why Qin Mu appeared in Chang'an city so timely and trapped and killed them. After thinking about these things, Shen Moyan felt a deep sense of frustration. The matter against Dakin was really the most wrong decision she had ever made in her life, and she was destined to pay the price for this decision. Thinking back to her greedy self before she set out, Shen Moyan felt very ridiculous. From the beginning, their purpose was not pure, and their original intention was not to avenge their own saint, but to covet the so-called great opportunity and great fortune on Qin Mu. It was their own fault to become the current ending. Thinking of this, Shen Moyan suddenly felt relieved. She looked at the 3 people fighting fiercely not far away and murmured, "Maybe, this is fate." Shen Moyan sighed and closed her eyes like she accepted her fate. She knew that she was afraid that she would not be able to escape today. Although she didn't know the strength of the woman opposite, she was definitely stronger than her. Instead of fighting to death, it's better to save some energy. Seeing Shen Ran close his eyes and stop struggling, Chu Qinyu was slightly stunned for a moment, then narrowed his beautiful eyes and looked at Shen Ran, revealing a trace of inquiry in his eyes. After Chu Qinyu carefully looked at Shen Ran, he suddenly raised his eyebrows, and a trace of excitement and expectation flashed across his eyes. "Hey, how about this? How about you follow me in the future? As long as you are obedient in the future, I promise that your future life will not be too sad." Chu Qinyu smiled and suggested, revealing a cunning in his beautiful eyes. Hearing Chu Qinyu's words, Shen Ran opened his eyes, frowned slightly, and was a little puzzled. "What do you mean?" Chu Qinyu coughed lightly and said, "That is to say, you will be my capable subordinate in the future. What do you think? Be your subordinate? Are you sane? Qin Mu will let you do this." Shen Ran couldn't help rolling his eyes and mocking. Chu Qinyu didn't mind Shen Moyan's sarcasm at all, still with a bright smile on her face, and said, "Don't get me wrong, I mean we can become sworn brothers. You recognize me as your elder sister." "Huh?" Shen Moyan widened her eyes in surprise, feeling a bit confused. Chu Qinyu's topic jumped too quickly, making her a little confused. The two were enemies just now, how come they are about to become sworn brothers now? What changed in the meantime? Shen Moyan blinked, with a head full of question marks. "You are really stupid," haven't you heard about the fate of the fairies who fell into Qin Mu's hands? Seeing that Xuanhuan was still puzzled, Chu Qinyu shook his head, seemed to be quite regretful, and then patiently explained. If you want to recognize me as your elder sister, the ending will be different. After all, I have been with Qin Mu for so long, and I can still say something. At the end, Chu Qinyu glanced in the direction of Qin Mu with a guilty conscience, but for her own plan, she still pretended to be confident. Because she suddenly realized her crisis just now, as Qin Mu conquered more and more saints and fairies, her advantages gradually became insignificant. If this continues, the situation will become more and more unfavorable for her, and she may even fall out of favor with Qin Mu. Chu Qinyu was unwilling to fall out of favor, unwilling to lose her advantages, and even more unwilling to give up the essence that was extremely helpful to her cultivation. So she needed help. She originally had two advantages, the first was her identity as a saint, and the second was the bond between her and Li Qingluo. The advantage of the first identity is now getting smaller and smaller, so she must develop a third advantage. Since Qin Mu is so interested in Shen Amoran, if she can get along well with Shen Amoran, or even make Shen Amoran listen to her, wouldn't it mean that she has one more advantage and one less enemy? There is a famous saying in human beings that there must be a teacher among three people. The bond between her and Li Qingluo is already perfect. If she adds a Saint Shen Amoran who has the attributes of a wife, it is simply a perfect combination. So after realizing her situation, Chu Qinyu immediately changed her strategy. Not only did she want to make friends with Shen Amoran, but she also wanted to train her to be a good sister in the same lineup as herself. No matter from which angle you consider it, this is a sure win business. Thinking of this, Chu Qinyu couldn't stop jumping in her heart. She felt more and more that this method was simply great. Chu Qinyu's face was full of enthusiasm. Shen Amoran's mouth twitched. She now had an ominous premonition. Especially when she saw Chu Qinyu's smile, Shen Amoran always felt that something was strange, but she couldn't figure out what was strange for a while. After listening to Chu Qinyu's words, Shen Amoran's eyes flashed with extremely complex emotions. After a while, she slowly curled her lips and smiled lightly, and asked, "Why do you think I will believe you?" Although she does need to create a more favorable living environment for herself now, it does not mean that she will give in easily. You have no choice, Chu Qinyu smiled slightly, and his tone was full of unquestionable. Shen Amoran bit his lip and said nothing, staring at Chu Qinyu with a complicated expression. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 333. She really had no choice. As Chu Qinyu said, she has no way out now unless she is willing to die here. Otherwise, you have to accept reality. And she had indeed heard some rumors that Qin Mu was cruel, ruthless, and lustful, and that no fairy who entered the great Qin palace had yet to escape. If she is really caught, only a miserable end awaits her. In this case, Chu Qinyu's conditions were very tempting to her. Chu Qinyu waited quietly, without urging, just as if he was confident of winning. I think you'd better make a decision quickly. The battle over there will be over soon. Qin Mu is not a reasonable person. If he really gets angry later, I won't be able to stop him. Chu Qinyu said slowly. Shen Moran frowned, raised his eyes and stared at Chu Qinyu, and asked insistently, "Can you really help me avoid humiliation?" Seeing this, the curve of Chu Qinyu's lips became a little thicker. She walked slowly to Shen Moran, reached out and hooked Shen Moran's shoulders, and pulled her in front of her. Don't worry, not only can I help you avoid being insulted, I can even teach you my unique skills. How about it? Have you considered it? At the end of the sentence, Chu Qianyu's eyes were full of bewitching and charming light, and he patted Shen Moran's cheek with an intimate and ambiguous look on his face. Looking at Chu Qianyu's beautiful face so close at hand, Shen Moran pursed his red lips, took a deep breath, and nodded solemnly. Okay, I hope you won't lie to me. Hearing this, Chu Qianyu smiled with satisfaction. From now on, I will be your eldest sister. Remember to listen to me, so that you can live a prosperous life in Dakan. Shen Moran raised his eyebrows but said nothing, obviously a little repelled by Chu Qianyu's remarks about calling himself the eldest sister. Chu Qianyu didn't care, and continued, you will know in the future how wise your decision today will be. Shen Mo curled his lips secretly and still didn't say anything, but looked at the battlefield. During their brief conversation, Qin Mu had already fought with the Nangong brothers for several rounds. But what sounded good was the fight, but what didn't sound good was that Qin Mu was teasing the two of them, just like teasing two trapped animals. Clad in the light of the stars, he stood on top of the dragon, looking down at the two people at his feet, with an arrogant and disdainful attitude. A bright moon hangs high in the sky. The bright moonlight fell around him, making him look like an immortal, otherworldly, noble, and domineering. But the two Nangong brothers were in extremely embarrassed condition. They were already covered in blood, their clothes were messy, and even the wounds on their arms began to ooze out and fester. Their eyes were covered with red bloodshot eyes, and their faces were filled with anger and despair. Seeing Qin Mu's condescending posture, they were filled with anger and wanted to tear Qin Mu into pieces. But no matter how hard they tried, they still couldn't even get a piece of Qin Mu's clothes. Seeing this, Shen Moran couldn't help but sigh. Is this kind of battle meaningful? Nangong Lingtian and Nangong Yuns were already furious. Their attacks were intensive and fast. Every collision would cause explosions and violent winds. However, Qin Mu was not affected at all. Instead, he strolled leisurely and dealt with the attacks of the two men with ease. This made Nangong Lingtian and Nangong Yuns feel a strong sense of frustration. Okay, it's time to end at this time, Qin Mu said calmly. As his words fell, a dazzling golden sword light burst out from his palm, which was dazzling. The golden sword light cut through the sky and shot toward the two of them. This sword light was obviously more threatening than the attack just now, and Nangong Lingtian and Nangong Yun's pupils shrank immediately. They tried their best to avoid the sword light. However, under the sword light, they had nowhere to hide, and the only thing they could do was to resist the blow. Boom! The violent explosion resounded throughout the sky, and the dazzling halo spread and splashed in all directions, like fireworks, dazzling and moving. Two balls of holy blood floated in the air, turning into a blood mist that filled the void and enveloped the entire sky. The bodies of Nangong Lingtian and Nangong Yuns flew into the distance like kites with broken strings. Bang bang! The two fell to the ground, their bodies curled up like shrimps, convulsing in pain, as if they would lose their breath at any time. Qin Mu walked over slowly and looked at Nangong Lingtian condescendingly, his eyes indifferent, like a superior god looking at two ants. Nangong Yuns coughed up two mouthfuls of blood and struggled to stand up. He did not read Qin Mu's question, but turned to Nangong Lingtian and said with a smile. I didn't expect us brothers to die here today, but fortunately our last moments were meaningful. At least we successfully sent Ranner out. Nangong Lingtian pursed his lips tightly and said nothing. He tried his best to support his body and wanted to get up, but unfortunately his body was too exhausted and he couldn't muster any strength at all. He looked up at Qin Mu and suddenly sneered, with bloodthirsty madness in his eyes, Qin Mu, your wishful thinking did not succeed after all. Qin Mu smiled, then pointed behind them, really? Then look who is there. The two of them turned around subconsciously, and when they saw that familiar figure, Nangong Yuns was stunned. Shen Moran was dressed in white clothes, dancing gracefully, as beautiful as a giant, with autumn water in her clear and pure phoenix eyes. Ah, Nangong Lingtian's eyes widened in horror. At this moment, she was walking towards them step by step. But her target was obviously not them. Shen Moyan walked around them and went straight to Qin Mu, tilting her head slightly, and her delicate snow-white face flushed. Qin Mu narrowed his deep black eyes, stared at Shen Moyan, and raised his mouth slightly. Have you figured it out? Shen Moyan bit her pink lips, then nodded, yeah. From beginning to end, her eyes did not fall on the two Nangong brothers, as if they were just strangers. Very good, you are very smart. After saying that, Qin Mu stretched out his right hand and gently brushed Shen Moyan's black hair, with a doting look in his eyes. Seeing Qin Mu's actions, Nangong Lingtian couldn't help but clench his fists, and his heart felt like being pricked by a needle. Nangong Yun's also widened his eyes, looking at Qin Mu and Shen Moran in astonishment, and murmured in disbelief, Ran'er. This blow was more thorough than the damage caused by the sword light just now. It hurts too much. I lost my love, and everything is desolate. In a trance, Nangong Yun seemed to see a ray of green light shining on his head, so bright, so green. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 334. Why? He opened his eyes wide and murmured in confusion, why is this happening? Why? Just in the middle of speaking, he blinked his sour and chapped eyes, looked at Shen Moran's back, and murmured, Ran'er. Nangong Yun shouted Shen Moran's name with a trembling voice, but unfortunately Shen Moran still chose to remain silent and had no intention of paying attention. It was as if I had never known him. Nangong Yun suddenly grinned. He subconsciously touched the sticky stuff on his face. His tentacles were wet. After a closer look, he discovered that it turned out to be blood. It had been so many years, that he had not been injured or bled. I didn't expect that today, because of Shen Moran, I would be so seriously injured. What made him even more unexpected was that Shen Moran would choose this path for his own survival. Thinking of this, Nangong Yun's laughed sadly a few times. Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. He laughed extremely wildly. Kay smiled, tears welling up in his eyes. Nangong Lingtian's eyes also widened, and he looked at Shen Moran's back unwillingly. The sadness in his heart became more and more intense, as if a huge mountain was pressing down hard, making him unable to breathe. They worked hard here just to save Shen Moran, but in the end, she was sent directly to the door. So what's the point of everything they just did? He suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood sprayed on Nangong Yun's face, making Nangong Yun's expression become ferocious. Nangong Yun's raised his head, glanced at Nangong Lingtian coldly, gritted his teeth and said, how are you? Hearing this, Nangong Lingtian shook his head, pulled the corners of his lips with difficulty, and showed a weak and bitter smile, no problem. After hearing this, Nangong Yun sighed slightly, I'm afraid our brothers will really fall into trouble here today, but it's a pity that we couldn't. Before he finished speaking, Nangong Yun suddenly glared and roared, stop. Nangong Lingtian took advantage of the situation and looked around. Qin Mu's hand was already caressing Shen Moran's hair to her face, then slid down her slender neck and gently lifted her chin. Shen Moran's eyebrows are beautiful and refined, and her skin is as beautiful as snow. It breaks instantly with a blow, and she is breathtakingly beautiful. She stood there quietly, like a fairy beyond the sky, noble, sacred, and full of charm. At this moment, she has her eyes closed. Her long eyelashes cover her pupils that are as smart as crystal stones. Her delicate nose and cherry mouth combine to form a wonderful picture of a woman, tempting people to commit crimes. Qin Mu reached out and pinched Shen Moran's chin, feeling the amazing elasticity and soft touch in his hand. Although you are a bit old, you are still pretty good looking and have a decent figure. You can barely be my maid. Qin Mu looked at Shen Moran and shook his head slightly. He seemed not satisfied and his tone was extremely reluctant. Shen Moran. Am I old? How old am I? This damn Qin Mu is so deceptive. Shen Moran opened his eyes angrily, and was about to retort when he met a pair of deep, dark eyes. Those eyes were like a vast universe, containing thousands of stars, bottomless, and people couldn't help but be drawn in. She was stunned for a second, then came to her senses immediately and struggled back. However, Qin Mu put his arms around her waist. He pushed forward hard and pulled her a little closer. Being suddenly pulled closer, Shen Moran immediately panicked, and a trace of ruddy color flashed on his delicate snowy face. You, let me go. She struggled to push Qin Mu's chest, but the difference in strength between the two was too great, and her body was so soft that she couldn't exert any strength at all, and in the end it was all in vain. Qin Mu raised his lips in an evil manner and asked with a smile, "Why are you so eager to throw yourself into my arms?" Shen Moran's fair and jade-like face turned crimson instantly, and he gritted his teeth and said, "You, what are you talking about?" Qin Mu lowered his head and stared at Shen Moran in his arms. Her fair skin was glowing with a faint crimson, like the rising sun, very charming. The breath coming from her body is also very sweet, like flowers blooming in spring, refreshing. Qin Mu, you are looking for death. Seeing this scene, Nangongyun's was furious and rushed forward immediately, but was knocked away by a strong force and fell heavily to the ground, unable to get up again. Ahem. Lying on the ground, Nangong Lingtian coughed violently, bright red blood spilled from his mouth, and soon his chest was dyed red. Ha! Looking at Nangong Lingtian who fell on the ground, Qin Mu shook his head. Immediately afterwards, he let go of Shen Moran, walked towards Nangongyun's and Nangong Lingtian, looked down at the two of them condescendingly, and suddenly smiled. Don't look at me like that. I'm not a villain. You will make others misunderstand me. What's more, you invaded my country, Dakin, and I was only acting in self-defense. You, cough, cough. After hearing Qin Mu's words, Nangongyun's gritted his teeth with hatred, but he couldn't refute. Yes, intruders are always intruders. No matter what, they can't change this fact, not to mention that they are responsible for all this. Seeing Nangongyun's painful look, Nangong Lingtian clenched his fists and dug his nails into his flesh, but he felt nothing. He tried to support himself and wanted to stand up and continue to fight with Qin Mu. However, the pain in his body reminded him that he was already seriously injured. Why? Shen Moran, tell me, why did you do this? Nangong Lingtian roared angrily. He didn't want to believe that things would turn out like this. Shen Moran turned around and looked at Nangong Lingtian and Nangongyun's quietly, like an outsider, staring at them indifferently. She lowered her head slightly, her dark hair blocked her expression, and only her calm tone could be heard. I can only say that I don't want to die. Nangong Lingtian gritted his teeth and said, if you don't want to die, why didn't you run away just now? Shen Moran laughed at himself and shook his head, as if asking back and asking himself, can you escape? Nangong Lingtian and Nangongyun's were shocked when they heard the words, and then they were speechless and stopped talking. Yes, she can't escape. With Qin Mu's strength, if he really wants to hunt Shen Moran, then can she escape? Since you can't escape, why bother running? Shen Moran, I really regret saving you just now, you are not worth my life. Nangongyun's cursed with gritted teeth, and the flames of hatred burned in his eyes. Shen Moran did not have any emotional waves because of his words, but curled his lips, revealing a sarcastic arc. Thank you, I don't need it. After the words fell, Shen Moran turned around without hesitation. Nangongyun's and Nangong Lingtian were so angry that they were about to collapse when they saw this scene. The two looked at Qin Mu and Shen Moran, as if they wanted to kill someone. Yes, that's right, it's this look. The only value of your existence now is to let me see your struggle and anger. Seeing the cannibalistic expressions of Nangongyun's and Nangong Lingtian, Qin Mu was in a good mood, and his steps became slower and more leisurely. He walked to Shen Emoran again, put his arm around her waist, held her in his arms, lowered his head and whispered a few words in her ear, but no one knew what he was saying. All he could see was Shen Emoran's face flushed, biting her lips lightly, and nodding her head shyly. Shen Emoran's behavior caught the eyes of Nangongyun's and Nangong Lingtian, and it made them furious and completely crazy. Their eyes were red, and their bodies were shaking with anger. They clenched their fists and gritted their teeth, wishing they could rush over and tear Qin Mu to pieces. But they didn't even have the strength to stand up, so what could they do to fight Qin Mu? Soon, the two of them were extremely sad and angry, and they suffered irreversible injuries. Under the combination of the two, they both vomited blood from their hearts. Then they slowly closed their eyes, and they were actually angry to death. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mi and Bulletin Leng. Chapter 335. Two more saints fell. When the surrounding saints who survived saw this scene, their eyes suddenly widened and they looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. As we all know, the strength of Nangong Lingtian and Nangongyun's are both at the third level of saints and above. But now, Qin Mu is angry to death. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it. The rumors from the outside world are indeed correct. The Lord of Qin is a cruel and cruel tyrant. They had the heart of a bear but the courage of a leopard. How dare they provoke such an evil god? A chill arose in everyone's heart, and at the same time infinite fear surged in their hearts. They were so regretful that their intestines turned green. If they had known this, it would be better to retreat at home. They swallowed in unison and quietly raised their eyes to look at Qin Mu, their eyes full of awe and fear. Dead? You are such a waste. How can you get angry so easily? You are still a saint after all. I really think highly of you. Qin Mu glanced at the two corpses on the ground, shook his head and sighed, seeming regretful and disappointed. Then he turned to look at Sword Fairy Emo Rushuan, who was stopped by Mu Kingzi, with an inexplicable smile on his lips. Qin Mu's smile made Emo Rushuan's heart tremble slightly. She secretly gritted her teeth and tried her best to stay calm. What do you want to do? She endured her heart palpitations and asked bravely. Qin Mu didn't answer, but asked curiously, are you afraid of me? Emo Rushuan pursed her lips and raised her chin stubbornly, do you think I should be afraid of you? Qin Mu raised his eyebrows and smiled without answering. He swayed and came to her side. Then he took out a crystal-clear elixir that was as transparent as glass and handed it to her lips. Emo Rushuan looked at this snow-white elixir that exuded a strong aroma of medicinal herbs, frowning slightly and wondering, what is this? This is a poison pill that can be poisonous to saints. If you take it, you will have no choice but to obey me and don't dare to have any second thoughts. Qin Mu stared at Emo Rushuan's beautiful face with a smile, a hint of amusement in his eyes. Emo Rushuan suddenly felt a chill in her heart, and she subconsciously wanted to refuse, but Qin Mu took the first step and stuffed the elixir into her mouth. She was about to resist, but Qin Mu covered her mouth to stop her. Woo! Emo Rushuan opened her eyes wide and stared at Qin Mu angrily, mist appeared in her eyes, and tears slid down her cheeks. She wanted to use her power to stop the toxicity of this elixir, but after it entered her body, it quickly dissipated without a trace, and no trace could be found at all. Emo Rushuan's heart suddenly went cold and her face was gloomy. She looked at Qin Mu coldly and scolded, Qin Mu. If you dare to touch a hair on my head, I will never let you go. Qin Mu didn't pay attention to her gaze. In fact, this was not a poisonous pill at all, but a UN building pill. It's just a trick to scare her. Remember, from now on you have to be obedient. After saying this, He let go of Xuanhuan, turned around, looked at the saints, and said calmly, "It's time to deal with you." Qin Mu said indifferently, "If you feel humiliated, you can leave now. However, the moment you walk out of here, it will be your death." These saints fell silent immediately. "Surrender, I surrender." After all, someone couldn't bear the torment in his heart and fell to his knees first. Plop, plop. Seeing someone taking the lead in surrendering, many people followed suit and rushed to kneel down. "I surrender, I am willing to surrender, and please spare my life." "Your Majesty, spare your life. I can give you whatever you want." "Your Majesty, please listen to my explanation." In the face of death, many saints finally gave up and knelt on the ground, kowtowed and begged. Although they were rebellious and their hearts were as high as the sky, they had to bow their heads at this time. They were not stupid. The strength Qin Mu showed was too powerful and there was no room for competition. Only a few saints still looked uncertain. Qin Mu didn't waste any time and directly killed those saints. The cruel scene made those saints tremble. After dealing with those saints who had not expressed their opinions, Qin Mu patted them and nodded with a smile, "Well, since you are willing to submit to me, I don't mind sparing you once." "Thank you, Your Majesty, for not killing me." Everyone kowtowed in unison, tears of gratitude. Seeing this, Qin Mu nodded with satisfaction and said, "Those who know the current affairs are heroes. I hope you can remember what happened today and stop doing stupid things again." After hearing these words, all the saints breathed a sigh of relief and smiled on their faces. Now it seems that Qin Mu has no intention of continuing to take action, and they should be safe. However, Qin Mu's next words made them despair again. "Hand over all the treasures you have on you first," Qin Mu said calmly. When the saints heard this, their faces showed pain. "Why, you can't bear it?" Qin Mu curled his lips with a cold smile. Seeing that the saints had not moved yet, the smile on Qin Mu's face became brighter. "Oh, since you are reluctant, don't blame me for being rude." After saying that, Qin Mu's right hand suddenly clenched into a fist. The next second, the saints could no longer bear the fear in their hearts and kowtowed for mercy. "Emperor Qin, spare your life." "Your Majesty, Emperor Qin, I will hand it over. I will hand over all the valuable treasures I have to you right away. By the way, there are also spiritual beasts here, we are willing to dedicate them to you." Some saints bowed their heads first. Seeing this, more and more saints soon handed over their treasures. "You don't have to worry that I will kill the donkey. As long as you work with peace of mind, I guarantee that you will be safe," Qin Mu said calmly. He looked at the people below, and the corners of his mouth curved. "However, I want to provide you with an insurance policy." He did not move, but the vitality of the world around him surged crazily, turning into chains, penetrating the void, and binding the saints. These chains are all crystal clear, as if they were forged from crystal, entwined with bright fairy light and exuding mysterious fluctuations. The saints were horrified and tried their best to resist the chains. However, the chains were not damaged at all and easily penetrated their bodies. In an instant, piercing screams resounded throughout the world, and wisps of fairy light penetrated into the bodies of every saint and penetrated deep into their flesh and bones. There was an endless stream of brutal screams. This severe pain caused all the saints to cry out in pain, break out in cold sweats, and look extremely miserable with their hideous facial features. Not long after, all the saints were lying on the ground twitching, their bodies covered with dense black lines, which were extremely weird runes, like some kind of seal and restriction. "Well, whoever disobeys me in the future will be like him." Qin Mu pointed at one and saw an ancient black rune on the saint's forehead, emitting a faint black light. Then suddenly his body swelled up, exploded instantly, and turned into a ball of ashes. He died extremely tragically, and his death was so miserable that everyone saw it shocking. Hiss. Everyone present took a deep breath of air conditioning and fell silent. This scene frightened everyone else, even Xuanhuan, whose eyes were extremely frightened and her pretty face was as white as paper. Okay, now you are all my slaves. From now on, my words are my will, and you must abide by it, Xuanhuan said calmly. Go down and kneel on the city wall, let the soldiers of Qin take a good look at you. Xuanhuan ordered calmly. As ordered, the saints responded respectfully, then raised their sleeves and robes to cover their faces, hiding the shame and hatred on their faces. What a shame that a dignified saint has fallen to this level. At the same time, at the border of Dakan, the invasion of the rebels and the Apocalypse Alliance has not stopped yet. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 336. In the territory of the Qin Empire. Outside a city on the border. The night was dark. A crescent moon hung in the sky, and the starlight fell on the barren sand dunes, making the whole sky bright. A gust of wind blew, raising dust and filling the entire area. There were rumbling footsteps in the distance, and countless figures could be vaguely seen moving between the sand dunes. My father and his men have already taken Chang'an City. It's up to us next. This time we must take down the Qin Empire, no matter what the cost, a loud male voice sounded. Yes, young master, a group of cultivators shouted in unison. They were wearing iron armor, with long swords on their waists, and exuding a cold and murderous iron-blooded aura, looking extremely powerful. This team was led by Nanggongyu, the young leader of the Baidu section. It was a mighty team with tens of thousands of troops. These were the disciples carefully selected by the Baidu section. The worst ones were all in the Purple Mansion realm, and the strongest ones reached the 9th level of the Way of Slashing. They all gathered together, with overwhelming momentum. Moreover, there were not only disciples of Baidu sect, but also disciples of other sects not far away. The number was so large that it was shocking, at least millions. Although they belonged to other sects, they joined the Apocalypse Alliance, and because their own strength was not strong enough, they now obeyed the Baidu sect, that is, Nanggongyu. In addition, various tamed monsters were also on standby at any time. These monsters were huge, some were more than 10 feet high, shaped like a hill, some were hundreds of meters long, like a python, some were snow white, like a snow wolf. There were tens of thousands of monsters in total, which was dazzling. They were distributed everywhere, ready to go. They would attack the city in front of them as soon as Nanggongyu gave an order. And there were 7 or 8 such teams in other places in Dakan. The entire Apocalypse Alliance was divided into several teams, attacking Dakan from different directions. Although these teams are all conventional forces and not particularly powerful, they are more than enough to deal with the Qin dynasty, which is also a conventional force. After all, the Qin dynasty is just an imperial dynasty and cannot be compared with the Apocalypse Alliance. And the fact is indeed so. After receiving the order, they set out from Tianlang City and easily captured several cities of the Qin dynasty and eroded nearly 1/3 of the territory of the Qin dynasty. Although they encountered several waves of resistance, they were insignificant. Even when they attacked several cities, the city had already rebelled against the Qin dynasty and became one of them. In just half a day, their progress increased rapidly, and many places had already reached the heartland of the Qin dynasty. According to the plan, at this speed, the Qin dynasty will be completely conquered in one day at most. Nanggongyu has an upright figure, and the armor on his body is shining with metallic luster and flashing with cold and sharp light. He stood on a beast with extraordinary divine power with his hands behind his back, looking down on the world and the vast land. Next to Nanggongyu, a younger girl was riding on a fiery red flying beast. Her skin was whiter than snow, Her eyebrows were picturesque, and she was beautiful and pure, as delicate as a flower, which made people's heart beat. She was slender, and her skin was as soft as porcelain. This girl was Nangong Yu, the daughter of Nangong Linshan, and also Nangong Yu's sister. She was looking at the city in the distance, and a hint of eagerness flashed in her eyes, as if she was very interested in it. "Brother, when will we get to Chang'an City? I heard that there are many fun things in Chang'an City," Nangong Yu asked softly, her tone full of expectation and curiosity. She turned her head to look at Nangong Yu, and playfully blinked her watery eyes. Nangong Yu noticed the girl's eyes, which were slightly unnatural, and dodged to the side. To be honest, he really didn't want to bring her here. This guy was a troublemaker, and it would be bad if he brought her, but the other party had his handle in his hand. In fact, this matter is not his fault at all. It was that woman who seduced him. As a young man full of blood, it is naturally difficult for him to resist such temptation. He made a big mistake in a moment of hot-headedness. And once such a thing happens, there is no way to explain it. Could it be that he went to his father and said, "Your concubine seduced me, I couldn't help it, let's call each other brothers in the future"? I'm afraid he is looking for death. As long as we take the city, it will be not far from Chang'an City. At that time, you can play whatever you want and eat whatever you want. Nangong Yu made a few perfunctory remarks. Wow, that's great. Nangong Yu clapped her hands, her smile was as bright as 100 flowers in full bloom, beautiful and moving. Nangong Yu shook his head, with helplessness on his face. He knew that the other party just wanted to come out to play, and didn't understand the cruelty of war at all, let alone the horror of death. Fortunately, they had the advantage in this battle, otherwise he really didn't dare to bring the sister out. Nangong Yu shook his head, drove away the distracting thoughts in his mind, and urged Nangong Yu to hurry up. This girl is simply his nemesis. Every time he stays with her, he feels scared, afraid that she will tell him something one day. However, although this girl ruined his mood a little, Nangong Yu was still quite satisfied with the smooth journey. He flipped through the map of the territory of Dakan and said with a smile, "Very good, we will reach Dakan Chang'an City in another day, ha ha ha." After that, he couldn't help laughing. "Congratulations, young master. Congratulations, young master." The people around him complimented him hurriedly. "Well, you have made outstanding contributions this time. After you go back, each of you will be rewarded with 5 marrow cleansing pills. I hope you can reach a higher level." Nangong Yu nodded and said, "Thank you, young master." Everyone was extremely excited and knelt down on one knee to kowtow. Marrow cleansing pills are spiritual level pills that can greatly improve the effect of cultivation. Especially for people in the Purple Mansion realm, they are even more divine and valuable. Even the core disciples of Baidu sect find it difficult to obtain them. Only a few true disciples can have them. Now that the young master actually gave them to them, how can they not be happy? Someone immediately said, "Young master, don't worry, your subordinates will do their best to clear the obstacles for you." "Okay, with your help, there is no need to worry about not accomplishing great things." Nangong Yu laughed loudly. Everyone followed suit, and the atmosphere suddenly became lively. "Young master, it is said that there are many beauties in Chang'an City of Dakan. Can we snatch them and play with them when the time comes?" Suddenly a young cultivator asked. Nangong Yu frowned slightly and scolded, "Nonsense. We are the righteous, how can we do such dirty things? Humph. You guys are all beasts. This girl warns you that if anyone dares to do anything wrong, this girl will not forgive you." Nangong Yu also stared with her big round eyes and said angrily, "Young master misunderstood, I was just talking, how dare I have evil thoughts?" The monk laughed awkwardly, scratched his head awkwardly, and lowered his head. Nangong Yu's expression eased and said indifferently, "Remember, our identities do not allow us to do anything that harms the righteous, and violators will be severely punished. Nangongyu's face looked better. She snorted, turned her head and looked into the distance, too lazy to pay attention to them. Nangongyu glared at the young monk just now, and cursed him in his heart. How can such a thing be brought out in the open? Isn't it enough to do it secretly? He had to say it in public, and in front of Nangongyu. What an idiot. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 337. Okay, let's take the city in front of us first. What's the name of the city? Nangongyu asked. Report to the young master, this city is called Xiang, and it belongs to Qingyang County. Xiang? Okay, this city belongs to us. Nangongyu's face showed a cold look, and he said grimly. Take it down in the shortest time. This young master has made a bet with the leaders of several other teams. Whoever arrives in Chang'an City first will be the first person in the apocalypse domain. This young master doesn't want to lose to them. Yes, young master, please rest assured, I will definitely go all out and will not let you down. Young master, we will never disgrace your reputation. Yes. Everyone responded, murderous intent was hidden, and their eyes were shining. Nangongyu nodded with satisfaction, and took the lead in driving the strange beast to fly to Xiang City. This army marched very fast and soon arrived outside Xiang City. The city walls were high, the lights were bright, and there were many patrolling soldiers in the city. Nangongyu looked up, a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth, and his eyes became more fierce, as if a sharp sword was unsheathed and pierced the sky, with an aura that was compelling. Well, those old stubborn people really thought they could hold on, he. He drew a mocking look at the corner of his mouth, and continued, I really want to see your desperate expressions after knowing that Chang'an City was captured, haha. Nangongyu laughed at the sky. You lead people to rush over and lead the charge, so that those Qin trash know the strength of our Baidu sect. Nangongyu said to an old man in green clothes beside him. Yes. The old man in green clothes took the order and left, leading thousands of elite disciples of Baidu sect to gallop towards Xiang City. At this moment, the guards of Xiang City surrounded the city gate. On the city wall, a group of guards in uniform were waiting in formation, staring at the distance with nervous expressions. In the meeting hall of the city lord's mansion, a group of generals sat upright and were discussing something. Kill! A loud shout sounded, deafening. The old man exuded a sharp sword force, instantly covering the entire Xiang City, and was extremely powerful. The old man's figure streaked through the night sky like a meteor, and rumbled into the city gate. Boom! The city gate shattered. The guards were caught off guard and were blown away by the huge force, and fell to the ground. The city was immediately in chaos, with screams and cries. In the city lord's mansion, a group of generals heard the sound of the explosion, and their faces suddenly changed drastically. Damn it, there is an enemy attack. Quick, gather troops to fight. Soon, a large number of troops quickly adjusted their formation and rushed out. They saw the scene outside the city wall and were immediately shocked. An old man in black stood in the void, holding a spear, with a domineering temperament, like a god of death descending to the world. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! With a shout, the whole Xiang city exploded in an instant, countless people fled in panic, and sharp and piercing whistles resounded through the sky. Boom! Accompanied by a violent explosion, a huge air wave spread out, the walls of Xiang city collapsed in an instant, and countless houses were destroyed. The originally prosperous and lively city became a mess. And all this was within Nangongyu's expectations. Why are you all standing there? Attack! Nangongyu commanded everyone to the inside of Xiang City and threatened, whoever can take Xiang City, this young master will reward you heavily, but remember not to hurt innocent people. Yes. Everyone roared in unison, and then turned into a torrent and rushed into the city. Although the guards in the city were numerous, they could not resist the bidusection in the blink of an eye. They were killed and scattered, and the army was defeated. In the city lord's mansion, a sturdy man with a beard said angrily, "How come these damn people from the apocalypse domain came so quickly? City lord, what should we do now? If this goes on, we will be breached soon. Otherwise, let's abandon the city and flee. What do you know? Fleeing without armor will only make others look down on us. We can retreat, but we must not flee in a panic. We must retreat to Chang'an with dignity, otherwise how can I face His Majesty? City Lord, that's right, but we can't withstand the attack of the Baidu sect at all, otherwise." "Shut up," the sturdy man roared in anger and kicked over the table and chairs in front of him. "City Lord, calm down," everyone knelt on the ground in a trembling voice. "Alas, forget it, evacuate Xiang and retreat to Chang'an. City Lord is wise." The generals of Xiang city quickly fled in defeat. In less than half an incense stick of time, Xiang city changed hands. Unbreakable. Haha, is this Xiang city? I think it's nothing more than that, just a bunch of chickens and pottery dogs. The defense of the Qin dynasty is as weak as paper. The monks of Baidu sect sneered. They held their heads high and were arrogant. This battle was a hearty victory, and they were fully qualified to be proud. Nangongyu stood on the city wall and looked at Xiang city, his face full of pride. "Congratulations to the young master for conquering Xiang city, congratulations to the young master for capturing Xiang city." Everyone knelt on one knee, clasped their fists and said loudly, with a mighty momentum and awe. No need to be polite. "Thank you, young master." Everyone stood up. Nangongyu glanced around and said with satisfaction, "Everyone performed well this time, I will reward everyone later." "Thank you, young master," everyone shouted again in unison. Nangongyu nodded with satisfaction, looking down at the people below, feeling very proud. This feeling of conquering is really great. "Young master, what should we do next?" asked a subordinate. "Keep moving forward," Nangongyu said decisively. "Yes." Then the army approached the next city called Qinjian in a mighty manner. On the other side, in Qinjian city, in a spacious and luxurious hall, an extremely fat man sat at the top. He had a ruddy face, slightly bulging cheeks, and wide eyes, looking very wealthy. And he was enjoying the service of several maids at this time, hugging left and right, so happy. This person was Wang Xing, the Minister of Revenue who was responsible for suppressing the rebels. Wang Xing's head was leaning on the arms of two maids at this time, looking leisurely. "My lord, it's not good, the enemy has entered the city." At this time, a cry came from outside. "At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid." Author, Leng Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 338. A guard stumbled in and reported anxiously. "What?" Wang Xing was frightened and trembled. He sat up hastily, his brows furrowed into a Sichuan shape, and he looked at the person below nervously. "Where is the enemy? Is it the rebels or the enemy of the apocalypse domain? My subordinates don't know yet, but the opponent is coming with force and is almost approaching our position," the guard said urgently. "Damn, these damn bastards, I didn't go looking for trouble with them, but they came to the door. Do you really think I'm afraid of them?" Wang Xing's face was gloomy, with a trace of resentment flashing in his eyes. He slowly sat up, looked down at the follower and asked, "Is there any latest news about Chang'an city?" The attendant looked hesitant and said with some uncertainty, "Sir, since we learned that Chang'an city was surrounded by hundreds of saints, no new news has been conveyed. It must have been fooled." After hearing this, Wang Xing's face became even more gloomy, and a pair of small mung bean-like eyes flickered slightly. His eyes were filled with both happiness and emotion, which was quite complicated. He murmured, "Once Chang'an city is occupied, the people of Great Qin will be dispersed. We, Great Qin, may lose this battle." The reason why he came out of Chang'an on the pretext of suppressing the rebels was that he was worried that the scene would happen. Unexpectedly, his premonition came true. Fortunately, his premonition was right, and he escaped. Wang Xing could not imagine how shocking the scene of hundreds of saints besieging Chang'an city would be, and how desperate the people besieged in Chang'an city would be. What is sad is that the national destiny of Great Qin has finally come to an end. Great Qin is about to be destroyed, and the country of Great Qin is about to change its dynasty. This makes Wang Xing, who holds great power and may soon be able to take over the position of national master, very difficult to accept. It took a lot of effort for him to get to where he is today, but as soon as it was empty, it disappeared into thin air. If he wants to have the status and power he has today, I'm afraid it will be difficult for him to do so in the future. Wang Xing's heart was filled with sadness, as if he were mourning his heir. Everyone was silent, they all knew what it would mean if Chang'an city was lost. Chang'an city is the capital of Deqin and the hope and belief of all the people of Deqin. Once it falls, Deqin will be declared destroyed. At this time, many rebels in Deqin rebelled, occupying their respective states and counties, and divided Deqin into pieces. Many forces in the Apocalypse region have also launched offensives and occupied countless cities in Great Qin. And any one of these forces is enough to eat a pot of Deqin. In addition, His Majesty has disappeared and the whole group is leaderless. From their perspective at this time, Deqin really couldn't hold on any longer. Wang Xing's face was as gloomy as water, and he was thinking a lot, and finally sighed, "Is there still no news from His Majesty?" The attendant shook his head and said, "Reporting to your lord, my subordinates are incompetent, and there is still no trace of His Majesty's whereabouts." Wang Xing suddenly fell silent. "Sir, do you think His Majesty has been killed?" one person asked worriedly. Wang Xing shook his head, smiled bitterly, and said, "It seems that God is really going to destroy our Great Qin. In fact, he escaped from Chang'an city not only because he wanted to escape, but more importantly because he still had a glimmer of hope. And this hope is your Majesty. As long as His Majesty shows up, he will immediately lead the army to join His Majesty, and then declare to your Majesty that this army is the last bit of strength he reserves for Great Qin. In this way, he will definitely gain your Majesty's attention and appreciation, and maybe he can become the most powerful person in the Qin dynasty besides your Majesty. With His Majesty's means and power, Great Qin may still have a chance to turn things around. At worst, it can start over again, leave Tianlan territory, choose a place to develop again, and wait for the opportunity to make a comeback. At that time, Wang Xing could still be inferior to one person in Deqin and superior to 10,000 people. But now, he can't even see His Majesty's shadow. The so-called turning around and making a comeback can only be a wishful thinking. The only way left for him now seems to be escape. Wang Xing sighed again and began to feel worried and confused about his future. The attendant hesitated for a moment and whispered, "Sir, His Majesty has been missing for so long. If he had wanted to come out, he should have appeared long ago. Moreover, there are endless rebellions and disputes in various places, and Deqin has no way to recover." The guard paused and then said, "Furthermore, even if His Majesty comes back alive, so what? Your Majesty is too young after all. Even if his cultivation qualifications are amazing, he is no match for those cunning saints. We are lucky to be able to make it out of Chang'an city alive. It's better to leave here quickly and save the last bit of strength for Deqin." Wang Xing looked in a trance, as if he was distracted, as if he didn't even hear the call from the followers below. "Sir, what should we do? You can give me an idea." The attendant couldn't help but urge. Although he was a guard, he knew deeply how serious the crisis in Dechin was at this moment. If Great Qin were defeated, the pattern of the Tianlan region would be completely changed, and the dominance of the Great Qin family in the Tianlan region would be completely broken, ushering in a major reshuffle. And the subjects of Dechin will face a catastrophe. Even the guards who followed Wang Xing would suffer and end up with the same fate as other soldiers. Although he is from Dechin, he cherishes his own life more. He has not enjoyed it enough and does not want to die. Sir, let's run for our lives quickly. If it's too late, we may not even have bones and dregs left, a follower on the side advised. Yes, sir, I heard that those beasts in Tiankai domain have gone crazy. They will not let us go at all. We still have time to escape now. Yes, sir, it's still too late to escape now. As long as we escape, Dechin will not be truly dead. Others also echoed, looking anxious and panicked. Wang Xing seemed to be awakened by his subordinates, and suddenly came to his senses. He sighed and shook his head. Well, you are right, things have developed to this extent, and I am unable to save Dechin. His eyes gradually regained their clarity, and there was a hint of unwillingness in them. He gritted his teeth and uttered a few words, notify me, prepare to evacuate immediately. Although he was unwilling to do so, at this point, he had no other choice but to escape in order to have a chance of survival. Follow the order. The attendant saluted respectfully and then left quickly to carry out the order. Wang Xing looked up at the sky and murmured, Your Majesty, Chen is not willing to escape, but I have really tried my best. I hope you don't blame me. Suddenly, there were sounds of fighting outside. Coming. Wang Xing's expression suddenly changed, and he rushed out and came to the city wall. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 339. Where are the enemies? Sir, they are coming. There was a panic on the tower, dust and smoke were rolling outside the city, and the sound of killing was deafening. In the distance, dozens of soldiers were running towards Qinjian city at a very fast speed, and they arrived under the city wall in the blink of an eye. The leading soldier quickly came to Wang Xing's side and knelt on one knee. Greetings, sir. Get up, do you know who the enemy is? Wang Xing asked. Reporting to the sir, it is the people of the Baidu sect of the Apocalypse domain. They have already killed to the city gate. What? Baidu sect? How did they come so fast? Wang Xing's green bean-sized eyes suddenly glared, the fat on his face trembled, and beads of sweat the size of beans oozed out of his forehead. These people from the Apocalypse domain came faster than he thought, which was completely beyond his expectations. Where did they come from? Reporting to the sir, they came from the direction of Xiang city, which is not far from Qinjian city, the soldier replied. Hearing this, Wang Xing's heart twitched violently, and a chill instantly surged through his body. He shouted angrily, Xiang city has hundreds of thousands of defenders, why was it occupied so quickly? The defenders of Xiang city were vulnerable. The thousands of Baidu sect members broke through the defense and the army was defeated. The generals of the defenders also abandoned their armor and fled, causing the entire city's defense system to collapse. The enemy easily broke into the city, the soldier replied. Wang Xing's face was ashen. Asshole. Sir, what should we do now? If we continue to stay here, we will definitely die. An attendant's face was full of despair. Wang Xing showed a resolute look on his face and said coldly, it seems that we can't stay here. Pass my order and everyone retreat. Then he waved his hand and led his confidants away from here. Soon, Wang Xing led the army stationed in Qinjian city and fled the city. On the other side. Report, A cultivator came running and reported to Nangongyu, "Young master, the generals guarding the city in front have escaped." They walked quite fast. Nangongyu raised a sarcastic arc at the corner of his mouth. "Young master, what should we do now? They are just a bunch of trash. Don't pay attention to them. Let's continue to march towards Chang'an City. Don't let these trash delay our journey," Nangongyu said indifferently. "Yes, young master." A group of cultivators left quickly. "Brother, why don't they resist us?" Nangongyu looked at the group of Dakin soldiers who escaped and asked curiously. Nangongyu smiled slightly and said, "It's not that they don't resist, but they have run out of tricks." "Oh," Nangongyu asked in confusion. "You saw the battle just now. They can't stop us at all, and now they are surrounded by enemies and have no power to resist at all," Nangongyu said slowly. Nangongyu blinked and said a little confusedly, "But aren't they soldiers? The book says that soldiers should defend their country, so why do they run away?" Nangongyu was silent for a moment, and then slowly said, "Because they are afraid of death. Because they are afraid of death, they would rather give up their wealth and glory, and their bright future, and live in disgrace. Because they are afraid of death, they would rather give up their dignity and pride, and live in disgrace," Nangongyu said lightly. Nangongyu tilted his head, thought carefully, and responded with two sentences that seemed to understand. "Oh. Brother, are you afraid of death?" Nangongyu asked again. "Of course I'm not afraid of death," Nangongyu answered firmly, with no fear in his tone. His eyes were firm and sharp, and his whole body was filled with an unconcealable kingly aura. "Then if you encounter an unmatched enemy, will you abandon me and run away?" Nangongyu blinked her eyes with a serious expression. Nangongyu stretched out his right hand and rubbed her soft hair, and said with a smile, "Silly girl, I am your brother. No matter what kind of difficulties I encounter, I will do my best to protect you. You will always be my sister." Although he hated the sister, she was his sister after all, and the image of a brother still had to stand up. Nangongyu secretly pouted and whispered, "I hope you can do what you say." Nangongyu touched her head and said softly, "Okay, don't think about it. I will buy you candied hos when we get to Chang'an City." Yeah, Nangongyu nodded obediently and stopped asking questions. "Let's go." Nangongyu leaped onto the back of the red-feathered eagle, which immediately flapped its wings and screamed, turning into a stream of fiery red light, and quickly flew away. The other Baidu sect disciples also followed closely. At this moment, Qinjian City had already fallen, and the people hid in fear. Qinjian City was the heartland of their great Qin dynasty, and it was their habitat. Especially when they learned that Wang Xing had led the army to leave Qinjian City, the people in the city were extremely desperate and fled frantically, fearing that the enemy would slaughter them. Their relatives. For a moment, the huge Qinjian city was filled with wailing, crying, despair, and shrill voices. The whole city seemed particularly tragic. Fortunately, the Baidu sect disciples were not very interested in them. They just sent some people to take over the city and left in a hurry. At the same time, not long after Wang Xing left Qinjian City, they were blocked by a team. The leader was wearing silver-white armor, with a long sword on his waist, heroic and valiant, and a beautiful face that was breathtaking. Her face was cold, full of anger, and her beautiful eyes stared coldly at Wang Xing. Beside her stood hundreds of women in black, all of whom were tall and pretty, and each of them exuded a fierce and murderous aura. They were dressed in the same outfit, with a golden moon emblem embroidered on their chests. "Who are you? How dare you stop our army?" Wang Xing frowned, looking at the woman in front of him, and asked in a deep voice. "Are you Wang Xing?" the leading woman shouted coldly, her aura soared, and a wisp of spiritual energy wrapped around her like a snake, making her more sacred and solemn, and faintly there was a kind of imperial aura. Wang Xing frowned slightly. The identity of the woman in front of him must be not simple, and he seemed a little familiar. "Yes, I am Wang Xing. Who are you? Kanyu Dynasty, Xiu. When Wang Xing heard the name Xiu, his pupils suddenly shrank and his heart trembled. He finally understood why he felt familiar. Isn't this woman the envoy sent by Kanyu Dynasty to Dakan that day, who was very arrogant in the court and was finally imprisoned in the Yeting Palace by His Majesty? She is also Xie Hongai's goddaughter and the current empress of Kanyu Dynasty. Why is she here? And she brought so many people with her? Could it be that she came to take advantage of the opportunity to occupy Dakan? Wang Xing was immediately alert. Why don't you resist and hand over the city? Xiu asked coldly, with a raging anger in her tone. Wang Xing was speechless for a while, and didn't know what to say for a while. He thought that the other party was here to take advantage of the chaos to occupy Dakan, but he didn't expect that he was wrong. The other party was actually here to support Dakan? Your Majesty, Empress Kanyu, it's not that I abandoned the city, but that the Qin dynasty could no longer defend it, so I had to lead the army to leave Qinjian city and retain the last bit of strength for the Qin dynasty. Wang Xing sighed and continued, and you may not know that Chang'an city has also been surrounded by nearly 100 saints from the apocalypse domain. This is a dead end. I advise you to leave with me to avoid being implicated. Hearing this, Xiu suddenly shook her head and laughed, as if she had heard a joke, and looked at Wang Xing with compassion. You will regret your decision today. Wang Xing frowned, and just as he was about to say something else, he suddenly glared, swallowed the unfinished words back, his heart fell directly into the abyss, and a chill spread all over his body. I saw a figure slowly walking out from behind Xiu. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 340. This is a young man who looks about 20 years old. He is dressed in a black robe, with long flowing hair like ink, a handsome face with sharp edges and corners, and a pair of deep eyes. He seems to be an immortal who walked out of a painting, elegant and easygoing, and not in the mortal world. But if you feel it carefully, you can also find that he still reveals a kind of majesty that looks down on the world, as if he is the only one between heaven and earth, and he reigns over the world. This also led to the fact that although the young man had a faint smile on his lips, it made people feel chilled, even a little creepy, and they could not help but have an impulse to surrender. At this time, the young man took a slow step and walked out from behind Xiu. Wang Xing was shaking, stumbling back a few steps, his face was extremely terrified, and his mouth was opened as wide as possible, as if he had seen the most terrifying thing in the world. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. Wang Xing swallowed his saliva with difficulty, his voice stuttered, and he could not say a complete sentence. The young man in front of him was so familiar to him. It was the Majesty whom he had been thinking about and waiting for. Hasn't the Majesty been missing for a long time? How come he is here? And he is with the new Kanyu Queen? Has the Majesty been in the Kanyu dynasty before? What is he going to do this time? Is he going to launch a counterattack? Did the Majesty hear what he just said? At this moment, countless questions surged in Wang Xing's heart, but soon these questions were drowned by great fear. What he just said was extremely treasonous. Under normal circumstances, he would be punished with the death of all 9 clans. No, all 180 generations of ancestors would be implicated. When he thought that what he just said might have been heard by the Majesty, and when he thought of Xiu's pitying eyes, Wang Xing was so scared that his liver and gallbladder broke, and his fat body trembled violently, like a pig being slaughtered in a slaughterhouse. The pair of thick thighs were shaking, cold sweat instantly soaked the back, and the heart was beating like thunder, almost jumping out of the throat. Wang Iking, I wonder where you are going. Qin Mu smiled lightly, his voice was calm and gentle, like a spring breeze blowing over the lake, rippling waves. But to Wang Xing's ears, it was like a devil's sound, stimulating his fragile nerves, making his scalp explode, and a strong sense of panic and anxiety surged in his heart. Plop, Wang Xing knelt on the ground without any warning, his knees touched the floor, making a dull sound of bang. He could no longer bear this pressure, knelt on the ground, and kowtowed hurriedly, "Your Majesty, your humble servant pays respect to your Majesty. Your Majesty." Seeing this situation, the soldiers around Wang Xing finally understood, and knelt down one after another, lowered their heads, dared not raise their heads, and trembled all over. Obviously, he was extremely scared. But the person who was most afraid was none other than Wang Xing. He had fantasized about meeting His Majesty countless times, and even expected His Majesty to lead his remnant army to find another place to make a comeback, and appoint him as the Qin state master. But he never thought that His Majesty would appear in front of him at this time and place. He really wanted to slap himself twice now. How could he say that? Wang Xing's forehead touched the ground tightly, his eyes were tightly closed, his lips trembled, and he kept praying in his heart that His Majesty had not heard anything just now. "You haven't answered my question yet." Qin Mu's voice was still very gentle, unhurried, and calm, but it sounded like a death warrant in Wang Xing's ears. He was really regretful now, and he wanted to slap himself hard a few times. Your Majesty, please listen to my explanation. There must be some misunderstanding in this matter." Wang Xing forced himself to remain calm, trying to squeeze out a stiff smile, and said carefully, "I am not running away, but preparing to lead the army to find your Majesty. I didn't expect you to come out. This is really great." Qin Mu couldn't help shaking his head and smiling. "Really? Should I thank you? Your loyalty is really evident to all. Your Majesty, please don't say that. This is not worth mentioning, not worth mentioning. I did this because I was worried about your Majesty's safety." Wang Xing smiled embarrassedly, fine beads of sweat oozing from his forehead, feeling extremely guilty. "Oh, in that case, I will not pursue your crime of leaving your post without permission," Qin Mu said with a smile. "Thank you for your grace, your Majesty." Hearing this, Wang Xing was immediately overjoyed. But the next second, Wang Xing's smile suddenly froze, and his facial muscles twitched violently. Qin Mu suddenly stopped smiling and looked cold. So, Wang Yiqing also admitted that he had left his post without permission. "Wang Xing. I dare not. I am loyal to your Majesty, and the heaven and earth can bear witness to it. Your Majesty, please investigate clearly." Wang Xing kowtowed repeatedly, with tears in his eyes. "Do you think I am a fool?" Qin Mu glared at Wang Xing and shouted. "Your Majesty, please forgive me, your Majesty, please forgive me." Wang Xing was so scared that he kowtowed and admitted his mistake immediately, with cold sweat all over his face. This sentence made his heart completely cold, as if he had fallen into an ice cave for thousands of years. In addition to despair, he had no other feelings. "Wang Xing, you are so courageous. I heard from the National Master that your mission this time was to suppress the rebels. As a result, not only did you fail to suppress the rebels, but when you faced the enemy, you led the way without any resistance. The troops evacuated Qinjian city and attempted to rebel?" Qin Mu glanced sideways at Wang Xing, who was kneeling on the ground. His eyes were cold and his tone was emotionless. Wang Xing's scalp felt numb instantly. If these big hats were placed on his head, he would never be able to make a comeback. His face turned extremely pale, he quickly raised his head and argued in a panic. "Your Majesty, I was talking nonsense just now. I thought Great Qin had been defeated, so..." As he spoke, he suddenly realized something and immediately changed his words. "Please believe me, your Majesty, I have no intention of treason. It's just because your Majesty has not returned yet. I am afraid that you will be in danger, so I want to reserve some strength to save your Majesty. I hope your Majesty will understand." Although he didn't know why Qin Mu suddenly appeared here, he knew that he had to clarify the matter first this time, otherwise he would be dead. Snored. When Qin Mu heard this, he sneered contemptuously and continued. During my absence, the imperial advisor managed the government on my behalf. Not only did you flee Chang'an under the pretext of countering the rebellion, but you also attempted to commit rebellion. You deserve to die. Your Majesty, please spare your life. I was wronged. Wei Chen deserves to die. Wang Xing originally wanted to defend a few more words, but he seemed to realize something, and suddenly slapped himself hard twice, crying with tears in his eyes. He slapped his face again and again, with such force and loudness that it could resound throughout the entire mountain range, and his voice was full of pain and regret. Your Majesty, I am ignorant, I am ignorant. Wang Xing groaned in pain, his hoarse voice full of self-blame and regret. He was lying on the ground, blood spilled from the corner of his mouth, and the blood dripped on the soil, looking particularly bright red. The atmosphere was heavy and solemn, and everyone stared at the scene in stunned silence. They looked at Wang Xing in disbelief, not believing that the once majestic Lord Wang would be in such a mess at this moment.